Hello everyone, welcome to this new memoQ webinar. I am Damien from memoQ's marketing team and I will be the host of this webinar. Our presenter today is Angelica Zarfas. She once earned a degree in translation for Chinese and Japanese, but she moved very early in her career to the most technical side of the translation business. She has been a trainer for translation tools for the last 20 years and has worked with memoQ since the tool came to market in 2006. Today's session, Connecting the Outside World to memoQ, will introduce external tools that can be easily connected to memoQ to boost productivity. This webinar is being recorded, and you will be able to find the recording on our YouTube channel in a few days. The session will last approximately 30 minutes, with 10 more minutes at the end for questions and answers. You can type your questions at any time in the questions and answers panel, and they will be answered at the end. Now it's time for me to let Angelica start this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. So, can you give me the rights to share my screen?
Sure, I think now you can share your screen. You just need to click on.
Now it says why somebody else is sharing their screen. I cannot.
Oh, this is new. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay, that looks better. So now my screen should come up with my presentation.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great.
You.
Thank you. So I'm doing a presentation today with PowerPoint because there are so many topics I want to touch upon, and it would take a lot more time to do them live. So I hope you forgive me that I've put them together in these slides. I would like to talk about today about plugins, a lot of things that are installed with memoQ already, like, for example, a connection to Microsoft Word and the spell checker, online dictionaries, plugins that are installed with memoQ, but they're commercial, so you would need a license to use them. For example, for some of the online translation memory connections or online term bases, machine translation, obviously. And there are other plugins that are additional, so they're not installed with memoQ. You have to install them, but they are for free. For example, the preview tools for previewing a video when you do subtitle translation, or PDFs for source documents. There's the Hey memoQ app, so that you can use your iPhone for dictation. And then there are additional plugins that need to be installed that are commercial. For example, grammar checker antidote or TransPDF that's actually already in memoQ, but it needs to be activated. Then we'll talk about some tools, so not plugins, but tools that are installed with memoQ. That's the TM search tool, and those of you who've listened to the hidden treasures may already know that. But there's another one that's called a search and replace tool that can be used in the automation of the templates. Then a little bit on the memoQ server. Of course, also there, machine translation can be added. Connections to content management systems, so getting data between the systems. Scripting in templates and automation, which is mostly done in online projects, but can also be done in local projects. Customer portal to request translations. Content connector to use a folder to store, translate, or files that need to go into translations, and some words on the SDK and the API, so for creating plugins and connections. So quite a lot of things to talk about. Let's start with the plugin for Microsoft Word, which is already there. So it's connecting directly to Word if you want to use the spell checker or the grammar checker from Word. In Word, you have dictionaries where you store the words that should not be checked by the spell checker. This can be imported into the ignore lists in memoQ. And once you've added words in memoQ to these ignore lists, they can also be exported again to the Word dictionaries. So this is how it looks like. In the options, you have the area for spelling and grammar. And there you can check that you want to use spell checking from Word for a certain target language. Of course, Word needs to have that target language spell check installed. And in the second tab, in the grammar tab, you can select that you also want to use Word for grammar checking. So this only applies to Word. There's no other grammar checker in this options dialog available. In the resource console, there's an area for the ignore lists where you can then import your dictionaries, your word dictionaries, into the ignore list. And once you've used that ignore list, added some terms that should not be checked any longer, then you can also export that again in the resource console back to Word. So it's a two-way street. If you want to use something else for grammar checking, for example, there's a new plugin called for antidote. That means the antidote corrector can be connected since memoQ 9.1. This works with the antidote version 9.5 or later. It is a license required for antidote, so that you need to buy that tool, install it on your computer, but then you can connect it to memoQ. It works for English and French. There will be an additional icon on the translation ribbon. And if you click that, then the antidote corrector will come up from within memoQ. There will be an extra window, so the antidote window, and you can either work in this window and do your corrections. The corrections you do here automatically are already done in the memoQ file, or you do the corrections in the memoQ file in the editor, and they will appear here as corrected as well. So it's a connection between these two tools. Going on to some more plugins, online translation memories, online term bases. They have been there for quite some time, but I'm not sure that everybody knows that they exist. So in the options again, you have an area for the translation memory plugins. There are some plugins listed. So there's, for example, the My Memory, which is a collection of translation memories from the European Union and the United Nations. That's for free. There is the Taos plugin, where actually you need a subscription to use that. But there you have material from different industries that you can access, or you can upload your own data. There's TMX Small, which is for translation with Chinese. So it connects at the moment to 8 different systems. Machine translation, basically, but based on translation memories. And it connects, for example, to the Alibaba Translate or Mr. Translator from Tencent, Baidu. So basically Chinese translation. And then if you are using WordFast, the WordFast server, so competing tool to memoQ, the WordFast server, and you have a WordFast translation memory there, you can also access that inside memoQ. Similar to the terminology plugins, they also have been there for quite some time now. So the Euro Term Bank is, again, for free, but it's not customizable. So that means that if terminology is being searched, it might come up with different subject matters mixed. So for example, if you search for the word sentence, it might come up with sentence is like a phrase, but also sentence is like when somebody is sentenced to a fine, for example, in court. So, well, check it out if it's useful for you. Otherwise, you can use terminology as a service. There's this 30-day trial, so you can try out if that term base is for you. You can even create your own terminology on that service. And again, if you have access to a WordFast terminology database on the WordFast server, then you can access that as well. The machine translation, these are also plugins. To set up these plugins, you would either go to the resource console, to the MT settings, or inside of a project, to the project home, and there to the settings, all the way to the right to the MT settings. So this is if you are in a local project and you want to do your individual setup for machine translation usage. Once you go inside the settings, there is a list of machine translation plugins that are available. So you could select whichever you want to use that has your languages, where you have an authentication key or a subscription for it. So all of these plugins need to have some kind of key that you need to put in that authenticates your usage. Most of them have a subscription so that you need to pay for it. Google MT and Microsoft MT, they offer a free amount of characters that you can use. If you go beyond that number of characters, and they also count spaces as characters, then you would need to go with one of their plans and pay for the subscription. And the subscriptions is also sometimes a question, is the subscription of MT included with memoQ? No, it's not. So it's something that you have to buy extra. One of the plugins in that list, that's the Intento, is also pretty new. That's actually a platform that offers access to several machine translation systems. So you don't have to get your access key from each of these translation systems, but you just go to the Intento platform and select which machine translation systems you would like to use. And then the system provides the connection to these different MT systems. Actually, there's also a setup that you can analyze your source text through the platform, and it will then suggest the best suited machine translation systems for your document. So depending on the subject matter, for example. It all depends on the settings that you have there. This is the area when you are working on a memoQ server, you can also set up machine translation. That's in this server admin. That would then provide access to this machine translation system or the systems that are used or selected in the list to all the users of the online project. So as this is a default resource, that means whenever a new project is created, and in this case, German is one of the target languages, then this machine translation or this list of machine translation systems would be attached to the project. And my translators could use my access to the machine translation system. So not each translator would have to set up their own and have their own subscription for that. Going on to another topic, PDFs. It's a pain in the neck, but there is a conversion tool actually, a pretty nice one. It's called TransPDF. It can convert PDF files that are text-based, but also image-based. So it has an OCR that can be used. It only has to be activated in memoQ. Actually, you need to have credits at TransPDF. So you create your own account there, then you buy credits. You activate it in memoQ, and then you can use it to do conversions of PDFs that then can be translated inside of memoQ. So it would convert the PDF file to an XLIF file that then appears in memoQ for translation. And afterwards, it converts it back to a PDF. There's also a PDF editing tool that you can use from TransPDF if you still need to do something in the final file. I found out just recently that TransPDF also connects to machine translation systems. So if you're on their website, check out their blog. There's an information on how that's being done. So you can see connections between systems. That is something that is coming more and more. It looks like this. You would register with TransPDF, you buy your credits, you go back to memoQ and add your account information from TransPDF in the memoQ menu. Then you have a way to import the PDF file using import with options. There would be a new option that lets you import PDF files through TransPDF. During the import process, you would get a third tab, and that then shows you when the PDF has been converted. You can then say, I want to add it to my project. So the file moves to the documents list. You can work with it with just like any other document that you have imported. And when you export it, it goes through this TransPDF step again and comes up here to download as a PDF file in the end. Talking about PDF, there's also another way where PDF can be used, and that's for previewing the source text. So this is one of the preview tools that can be, or preview plugins that can be added to memoQ. There's also another one for subtitles. So let me show you how that looks like. In the options in memoQ, there's an area for external preview tools. And here you can activate or install and activate the tool that you would like to use. Actually, the installation information is on the online help. There you also download the tool. So if you have a PDF for your source document, you would install the PDF preview tool, activate it in the options. For a local project, this source document that you're translating and the PDF of that source document, they need to be in the same folder so that memoQ can pair them, connect them directly. If you're working with online projects, there's a little workaround because you don't have the same files in the same folders on the server as when you download or check out the project. But what the project manager can do, they can add the PDF to the live docs, add them with a filter called import as is. And if they have the same name, so the file that needs to be translated and the PDF in the live docs, then this pairing, this connection of the source file and the PDF works as well. That means opening the document for translation in the editor would also open the PDF, and the current segment would be marked in the PDF file. Looks like this. In the background, we have the memoQ editor. I'm at segment number 8. When I click or when I open that file, that PDF window also appears, and the segment that I select is marked with that red outline, just as we know it from the regular preview window in memoQ. The video preview, that's linking files where you translate subtitles with the actual video where the subtitles appear. That works for SRT, so subrip files, and also for Excel. You would install the preview tool as well, activate it in the options. And then again, if both the files, the subtitle file and the video file, are in the same folder, they have the same name, then the video starts automatically when you open the file and click on a segment. Otherwise, if they don't have the same name, are not in the same folder, you can link them. There's a dialog that asks you to connect the subtitle file with the video. So clicking into the segment would then start the video with the part of that subtitle, a few segments before and after as well. I have a small example here. So you can see that's my subtitle file. That's a small video that I've done. So when I click into the segment that I want to translate, the video comes up. You can see here this Öffnen Sie die Optionen comes here. So it plays the video again and again and again until I go to the next segment. If the video has sound, of course, the sound is also available. Let's go on to searching. Online dictionaries and search engines. So this is something you can connect to memoQ to do maybe terminology searches. So that is something, again, you find in the options. In the default resources, there is the web search settings, or you can also set it up in the resource console. There's also an area for the web search settings. So what would you do there? You would have lists of dictionaries and search engines that you would like to use for certain language pairs, for example. I have set something up here for translations from English into German. My list is called Web Search Settings EN because I do the terminology research in English for the English terms in the source sentences. And if I go inside that list, I can see that I have selected several already existing resources like search engines like Bing and Ask.com. I have some dictionaries like the Collins, the Larousse. I actually have added DeepL, the online free machine translation platform that DeepL has, because it's an online resource. I can access it. The only thing is that you know that if you use these online free platforms for machine translation, whatever you send there, they will keep. So be careful with what kind of text you use that for. And then I have also added something called Dict. This is my own dictionary that I would like to use, which was not in the original list. So let's take a look inside how I set that up. So I added the name of the service. You can type whatever you like. That's how the service appears in the list. And then you need to fill out the search URL. You need to tell memoQ how to do searches on this website when you select some term in your translation editor. So what you do is you open that website, that service, you perform a search, and then what ends up in the address line of that web page, you copy that over. And you can see that here it says https www.dict.cc and then the slash, and then there's the actual search term that I use. So I was searching for the term house. The only thing now I need to do is, I now know how that website does searches. The only thing I need to do, I need to change that house, because that's very specific, into something that's just a placeholder for any term that I might select during translation in my memoQ editor. So just the two curly brackets, that's all. And then you can also do a test and see if the website comes up, if the search works. And that's how you can add your own online dictionaries to memoQ. Another search, now this is not online, this is local on your machine, would be to search through all the translation memories that you have locally through the clipboard. So not within memoQ, but outside of memoQ. So basically, the TM search tool actually is installed together with memoQ. So you can use Control-Shift-Q to call up this small window. There's a settings area where you can add all the translation memories that you want to search through. Local translation memories, no server translation memories. And then you can go to any document, any application, PowerPoint, Word, InDesign, email, and just select something, use the Control-C for putting it into the clipboard, and the search will be done in this small search user interface. You can see I have searched for new sentence, and I have translation memories, English to French, English to Japanese, English to Chinese, English to German. All of these have been searched for the phrase new sentence and will come up with whatever is in these translation memories. So this is something where you don't use memoQ, but you can use the resources, the TM resources in memoQ. And it comes up with all the matches, and you can just copy and paste. The application is on your machine, as I said, installed with memoQ. So if you go to the search field in Windows and just type in TM search, it should come up with the information which search tool is installed on your machine. Another application, the Hey memoQ for the iPhone. I haven't heard anything about the use of Android yet. Probably they're investigating that. We'll see what happens, but for the iPhone, it works. So if you have memoQ connected with the Hey memoQ and your iPhone, it comes up with that small dictation icon in the memoQ window. So you need to install the Hey memoQ app on your iPhone. It's available since version 8.7 of memoQ. Then you start memoQ and you start the app. And then your phone connects to your computer, actually. And you can start dictating. The dictation icon up in the right-hand corner also hides all the, or contains all the lists of commands in the different languages. So if you want to dictate in German, there's a list for German commands, there's a list for English commands, and so on. I just found that if you want to use Japanese and you don't have a Japanese iPhone, you have to install a Japanese keyboard on the iPhone first. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But that was the only language where I had any difficulties so far. So again, I have a small video that I would like to show. You would click on the icon, enable dictation, have your iPhone ready, start the app, start dictating. As soon as you do that, you will see this blue icon or that small round thingy going around when you do something. So you can go from segment to segment. Here I'm calling the match from the translation results list, and then adding something, that short comma that was dictated. And then I go on with the command to go to the next segment. You could set it up that the matches are already set in automatically, or that you call the match that you would like from the translation results list, whichever is more useful for you. So let's go on to automation. It's also something quite nice because you can run a script on the files before you actually import them into memoQ, or after you export them out of memoQ. So file manipulation outside of memoQ, but triggered by something that you do in memoQ. Actually, you can even change the files in memoQ themselves. So that's an automation that only works with the project templates. So you can run the script before the file gets imported, while the file is in memoQ, then it's working on the xlif file in the background, or you can do it after the export from memoQ. Examples: you could add language sections for multilingual XML. You could run a macro. I have an example for that. You could add language-specific tags while you're translating. You could run the search and replace tool. So let me show you how that looks like. And actually, the scripts are possible in local templates and in server templates. So I have an example for Word. The client has a file that has highlighted text. So everything that's highlighted needs to be translated, the other stuff not. So I have a macro that hides everything that's not highlighted. After the export, that hidden text is turned back on. So let's see. That would be when I edit the template, go to the automated actions, and then go to the script before import. The actual script is running a macro. The macro is called non-yellow highlight to hidden. I've created that in Word. And this is what it does. The text from the client contains highlighted text. My macro hides everything that's not highlighted. And afterwards, the script after export, it would then take the hidden off to show all text again. So this is something you could do with the automated actions. Or here is an XML file that is supposed to be multilingual after translation. But if I translate the original file like this, it's monolingual, which means that the translation would overwrite the actual text that's there. To be a multilingual file, it needs to have all the target language sections already so that I can use the multilingual filter. And that's what the script does. Out of this file, it makes that one. It adds the language sections, so now I can use the multilingual import filter and use the file, or the file afterwards is then multilingual. There are some sample scripts that you can download from the memoQ website under the Tools and Utilities tab. There's also a description of how things are done. And another one pretty similar to that is the search and replace tool. Actually, that's also installed with memoQ, so it's in the folder that I'm mentioning here, program files. It's useful for manipulating text files, and you can do replacements either with text replacements or with regular expressions. So the information how to set this up is in the online help. It's a pretty good description there, and also examples. Here's the example that they have. I have an XML file. It contains text that has the \n, and at every \n there actually should be a line break. It's hard to set up memoQ to do segmentation here, but with the search and replace tool, I could just replace the \n with a tag that memoQ recognizes as a break, and that would be something that then would have a nice segmentation in memoQ. Afterwards, I run the script in the opposite way to get back to the original format. Let's go one step further. Having something outside of memoQ that connects to memoQ, actually the content connector is also installed with the memoQ client. It comes with a connector to the folder system and also to source version, to SVN. It can also connect to other systems and databases, but that then has a different license. It has a small user interface where you set up the actual project. So it's not set up in memoQ, it's set up in the content connector. So you define the languages, you define filters if they're used for importing, you define the source file folder, the root folder where the actual files are that need to go into the memoQ project, and maybe even the target folders if new folders need to be created for the translated files. Can also be used with template projects, so you can have a lot of automation. It's installed with memoQ, can be used with a standard license, so nothing extra required. If you want to use it on a memoQ server, you need an enterprise license, and it's being installed through the deployment tool. So you have to install it separately. It's not installed together with the memoQ server directly, but installed through the same tool. That's how it would work. You have a folder. People add their files to the folder, and then those files go into the memoQ project. This could be a manual process where somebody opens the project and says, go to the folder and see if there are new files, or it could be automatic, where every 10 minutes, memoQ checks the folder if there are new files or changed files or deleted files, and would do the same thing in the project. After translation, these files would then go directly to the respective target language folders that have been created. So export path rules, for example. And then we also have direct connections, content management systems. Here's an example for WordPress. So you would need to install a plugin in the content management system in WordPress here that creates the content that goes into the translation projects. Then you need to enable the content connector, the content management system connector on the memoQ server. And in the project ribbon of memoQ, then you would have a new icon, which would call up the dashboard. So the connection information between the content management system and memoQ. And from here, you can choose the job and import it to a certain project. And afterwards, also deliver the files back to WordPress. So there's no folder in between where the files reside. It goes directly from WordPress to memoQ and from memoQ back directly to WordPress. Another thing that we have that is connecting to memoQ is the customer portal. It's a simplified way of having a browser-based user interface to request translation jobs. So the files can be sent to a memoQ server. A project can be created automatically. Project managers get notified, and the final files are then delivered to the customer portal again. So this is a communication between customers or clients requesting translations and having an automated way to put them into projects on a memoQ server. So again, here just a small overview how that works. So the client would open up their browser, go to the web page, log in, request a translation. They can select the source and target languages. These settings depend on what the project manager has set up on the memoQ server. And then they can select the type of service. Again, the services are defined by the project managers. They have the templates in the background, what happens to the files. Then they can drag and drop the files into this user interface, maybe even give some kind of additional information, some kind of description or question into this message box. And then they can select what the deadline would be. There's also a little bit of communication between project manager and client if the deadline is not right. During translation, they can see how the progress goes along. And after translation, they get a notification and they can then download the finished files from this user interface. So this is something that has been realized with the APIs. And here we come to APIs and SDKs. So API, the application programming interface for these custom integrations between different systems, and the SDK, the software development kit for the plugins. So it's used for the plugins that are, for example, the machine translation plugins and all the other things that we've seen. It's available for free, so you can create your own plugins, but if plugins should appear for everybody in memoQ, then memoQ will test the plugin, and this is something that's not coming for free because they have to have some people spend some time and effort on doing so. The APIs, there are different application programming interfaces available, connecting memoQ with other systems. The documentation can be downloaded from the memoQ website. There is one API that's for free, the Resources API, which is used to query a translation memory or a term base. So to send a request to TM or to term base, and then also get the results back. So this is something you can use for free. Then there's the Web Services API. There a license is needed because this is a full-fledged connection between systems. So connections to content management systems, to project management systems, to run automated actions, to retrieve analysis results. All these things are possible. And here's some examples of what already exists. So there are connections to project management systems like Plunet and XTRF. There are content management systems, WordPress, First Spirit, GitHub is coming up, and the list will grow. So if you want to do something on your own, take a look at the API documentation and decide if this is something for you. So now, I hope I have given you, oh, sorry, this is a slide from memoQ Fest. I should have covered that. Sorry about that. I was reusing the same template. But I hope I could give you some kind of an overview of how many things can be connected to memoQ to either work inside memoQ or to exchange data with memoQ. Now let's see if we do have any questions that we want to talk about. Let's see. So in the question and answer, I don't have any questions in the Q&A. Do we have anything in the chat?
There is one question regarding PDF preview, but I think you answered it. So the question was, what versions do these plugins work with? For example, PDF preview. So PDF preview tool was 9.1.
Yeah. And the other one for the subtitles, that was earlier 8.7, as far as I know. So question, if the webinar has been recorded? Yes, it has been recorded. It will be available within a few days on the YouTube channel. So you will get all the information there again. Then the question, where do we find the preview tool? Actually, if you go to the memoQ online help and search for the preview tool, you'll find it right away. There you can download it. There's the information how to install it. And what else?
I will also, sorry, I will also add a link to this part of the website so that you can access this section and download it directly. So I will send an email after the webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So all the information, everything we can collect, we will send out to you. Let's see, what other things do we have? Question regarding WordPress plugin. Is it available on Translator Edition? No. As far as I know, the WordPress plugin only works with a memoQ server. I will make sure that this information is correct, but as far as I know, you would need to have a memoQ server to connect to WordPress. Then there's a question, can I use Sketch Engine in my memoQ? Good question. I don't know Sketch Engine. I would have to research that and find out, but I will. And let's see, anything else? Do we have anything in the chat? Because it looks like I can't see that. I can only see the Q&A.
There is a question. So the question is there an alternative way for the QR code when connecting the iPhone or iPad to a Hey memoQ?
I don't think so. We'll ask the people who develop those things, but I haven't seen any other way of connecting. The QR code was usually the one that you needed to use. But as far as I know, you need to use it only the first time to actually get the connection. Afterwards, it should work by just activating the connection in memoQ and starting the app on your iPhone. But yes, we'll keep that question and we'll make sure that you get the answer from the people who created that thing. All right, anything else? Otherwise, I can always suggest that you send us your questions by email, and we'll make sure that all the questions are being answered and sent out as an email to everybody who signed up for the webinar so that you all get the benefit of the questions and the answers.
Actually, there was another question. The question was, can I use IATE from memoQ?
IATE, I don't think so. I'm not sure if it's in the terminology as a service. I would have to check. But there is no specific plugin for that yet. We could check if something is in the making.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question on, could you explain in detail how to download and install Hey memoQ? I will add that in the answer email because it's a little bit more than just telling you 2 steps. But yes, I will do so. Okay, nice one from Juliet. I failed to mention the memoQ MT is very useful to check if you have imported everything with sudo translate. Yes, but sudo translate is not a plug-in to an outside tool. And the topic of this presentation was to connect memoQ to the outside world. But you're right, the pseudo translate is something, well, maybe we do another webinar on things like that in the future. So again, the question on sending the presentation by email. Well, if you like, yes, I can send the PowerPoint slides to everybody with the email. That's no problem. Oh, and an answer from Lone. Thank you very much. It's now possible to configure Yate in memoQ web search. So you can actually use it with the online dictionaries and have the Yate search there. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Okay, another one, the TM search tool is for searching a word in all the TMs in your server or only one by one? Well, the TM search tool only works with local translation memories, not with server translation memories, and is for searching sentences or phrases or single words within the translation memories. It will give you a list of all the translation memories that contain this sentence or phrase or word and the sentence pair that it contains. But it's for local translation memories only. Okay, looks like we're almost through with the questions. And as I said, please don't hesitate to send us your questions by email. I'll answer them and we'll send that to you, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon, if not the latest by next week. So, well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And I'll send out the slides. We'll send out the link to the recording and answer all your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angelica, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar.